Welcome once again. We are, as always, with Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as where we are, Church Key, Birch and Barley downstairs, Vermilion, Columbia Firehouse. Greg just learned recently he is a James Beard Award nominee this year for Outstanding Wine and Spirits Professional. Congratulations on that. The list is getting long. Also, Food and Wine Sommelier of the Year, the one and only beer director to be so honored with that. What's on tap this week?
So this week, I thought we would just kind of revisit one of my favorite beers, one of the beers that kind of got me really interested in craft beer way back when, and something that's quite singular. It's called Westmalle Triple, and it is one of these Trappist monastically brewed beers from Belgium that have gained worldwide fame. And just an interesting thing in general about Westmalle is that currently I think there's a number of Belgian Trappist monastic breweries operating. Chimay is quite well known, Orval, Rochefort, a number of others. But these breweries didn't really come about until the 19th century, and that's because in the case of Westmalle, most of these monasteries were actually in France. But when the revolution happened and Napoleon secularized France, they kind of left. And Westmalle actually was on the way. The monks of Westmalle were on their way to the United States, but were protected by the Dutch, so they stayed in what's common day now Belgium. And they got there around the turn of the 18th to the 19th century. In 1836, they started brewing, and then started distributing locally about 15 years later. Really kind of cool. And the other thing is that this beer is actually from originally was brewed in 1933-34. The recipe changed in 1956. But the really important part about this is that it's a quote-unquote triple. And triple is a designation started in the 20th century for just a kind of triply strong beer. There were always beers that were maybe marked X and then 2X and 3X to indicate relative strength. But the triple actual label started in the 1930s. A lot of people think that this specific style of a pale, strong beer was brewed in the interwar period because pale lager was everywhere. People wanted that Pilsner. And so they decided to start brewing a paler beer to kind of go after the people that were looking for the golden, crisp flavors you'd associate with Pilsners and things like that. But the strength here, upping the strength, was important because Belgium, like the U.S. and many countries, went through a prohibition period. Unfortunately, though, their biggest prohibition was just to levy higher taxes on spirits like Genever. So it didn't affect beer and wine. So breweries like Westmalle started brewing stronger beers, we think, to go after those people who could no longer afford spirits. Okay. So it's kind of a killing two birds with one stone thing. Paler and stronger, and they ended up with a kind of a totally new style. They actually weren't the first, though. A guy named Henry Verlinden from Dre Linden Brewery created the first triple in 1932, we think, and then helped Westmalle actually create theirs. And then in 1956, the Father Thomas changed the recipe by adding more hops. So when we taste this, it's going to smell quite Belgian-y. Belgian ale yeast is known for beautiful, fruity, spicy aromatics. But on the palate, it's actually quite dry. It's not as sweet as some of the Belgian stronger beers can be. We'll have to let the foam subside. One of the coolest things about Belgian beers generally is that they're not forced carbonated. This has actually been re-fermented in the bottle, kind of like the same way champagne cava is, but they don't pull out the yeast or anything. Right. They leave it in here, so it's slightly hazy and the yeast gathers at the bottom. But this re-fermentation, this adding of yeast and sugar, will bring up this beautiful kind of champagne-like soft, creamy carbonation that really is important for its flavor in general.
And so, as we like to say, your beer is alive.
Yes, indeed, it is. It is. And it will continue to develop over time, which is so cool. So right off the rip, you get these wonderful kind of bright citric notes, a great peppery spice, almost rum-like, and there's hints of herb underneath. And for those of us out there who may think, like, why did he pour it with so much foam? Foam is your friend. foam is the best thing, and the reason why it maintains in beer rather than in sparkling wine or cider is because beer has residual sugars. And so these sugars kind of trap and scaffold the CO2 and hold it in place. It's important because CO2 is coming up, bringing with it the volatile aromatics that are going to give us our nose. They get trapped here, and as the foam subsides, we're going to get beautiful, huge hits of citrus and spice in the nose.
As we wait for that, people may notice, and I know people pay close attention, this week and the 3 weeks prior, we've had a different style of glass for each
Absolutely,
beer.
Yeah.
For kind of the average beer Joe who's going and sees this in the store and says, I want to try that, is there a resource online or at the library that can tell you or give you some sort of suggestion about what glass would be best to use?
Well, if you feel like coming to a library of sorts, obviously you come to Church Key or Birch Barley. I'd be happy to go over this with you.
For free. Almost for free.
But yeah, online, a great resource online. There's two that most people use, ratebeer.com and beeradvocate.com. Great for information on beers and ratings and things like that, but also style info, some pairing info, glassware info. And one note about this glass while we're talking about it is beers that are so complex as these, kind of wine-like, they have wonderful complexities of fruit and spice in the nose. We want to use a stem because a stem is going to allow us to swirl the beer. And when we swirl, we're activating those volatile aromatics more so, kind of creating more foam. You're going to get more aroma out of the glass. The curvature here is great as it kind of comes up like this, and then it focuses the aroma. So you've got a nice wide rim to be able to actually get your nose right in there and smell it. Don't want to fill this beer to the top. Want to leave some head space here.
Can't wait any longer.
And then actually it flares nicely, so you get a really excellent sip off the palate. It allows the malts to really spread themselves all over the tongue. And
you find that even though there's a large amount of foam still there, when you pour out of this glass, the liquid is right there. That's important, actually. That's why this flare allows the liquid to come through and bring some foam with it, rather than just in a pint or something, you might just get a mouthful of bubbles. What do you pair this with? Hugely versatile. I've been on this Indian kick, so I've enjoyed this with Indian food of all kinds, and thinking like tandoori, curry, things that have, the spice effect. All the Indian dishes have this wonderful kind of balance of spice and herb there as well. Excellent with the spicy herbal qualities here. Some citric fruits can kind of dress the dish as well. So yeah, I think this is awesome with Indian food. And this is readily available. You see this a lot. It's amazing how much you see this around. It's pricey. It's exported. It's very small batch. But the proceeds from the beer go towards maintaining the existence of these Trappist monks who are a dwindling lot. There's not as many monks out there, and they're getting older, so they're self-sufficient. And when you buy this beer, you're supporting a way of life that is kind of holding on right now. All right, Greg, thanks again as always. Pleasure. Appreciate it. I'm Brennan Haselton. Be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.